What's up guys, YGO Strats here on a Wednesday, just trying something out a little bit different. So feel free to let me know in the comments as to whether or not you like this sort of video. And I'll ask you now, if you feel like it, go ahead and subscribe. Click the button. Do it. Click the button now, or I won't continue. No, I'm kidding, I don't want to stare at the camera that long. If you like the video, subscribe, leave a comment saying, hello. And that's it, and I won't respond. Moving on to this video topic at hand, recently in my comment section on a video I can't remember, the topic of anti-spell fragrance had come up, probably in a ban list video or something. And I got to thinking about anti-spell fragrance because people's opinion of this card seems to vary depending on how competitively or more casually they play Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, I'm not going to sit here and say one is more objectively correct than the other. The tiers of Yu-Gi-Oh! Are kind of insane, wherein the top level play can be 2 or 3 turns sometimes, and that's it. Whereas more casual Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a bit more of a back and forth, and so at the higher echelons, if I can use that word, at the top tables, anti-spell fragrance is seen as just IO. It's just Imperial order, practically speaking. Being unable to use spell cards on your first turn, especially if you're going second, sometimes when turn 3 comes around, you're done. And if you flip anti-spell fragrance and your opponent already has a strong board of a Baron or whatever Tearlament's made or whatever Sprite made or whatever, and you don't get access to your spell cards, it can be the nail in the coffin, especially depending on the hand and the deck. Rip to the branded players who have to deal with anti-spell fragrance going second. That is probably about as bad as it gets. But whenever you hear someone who's a little more casually oriented talk about anti-spell fragrance, they see it as the fair Imperial order, because it doesn't stop you from using your spell cards, it simply delays you. Imperial order, IO, simply shuts down the entirety of one of the 3 mechanics of the game and says, nope, you don't get to do that, you don't get to have fun in that capacity. But if anti-spell fragrance is on the board for 4 turns and neither player has really won, it just means you're kind of waiting to activate your Regeki or activate your ritual spell or whatever sort of spell card you're playing. Even in terms of drawing the out, if you want to Twin Twister or Cosmic Cyclone or whatever MST variant you're playing the anti-spell fragrance, you still need to wait a turn to do it, and that means that the opponent can have a chance to pop your set spells or disrupt them in some other ways. It's got to be a hell of a punishment or a hell of a bad feeling when you've drawn something like a Dark Ruler No More and you have to set it to wait till your next turn to go off, and then on that turn they make Nightmare Unicorn and shuffle the Dark Ruler No More back into the deck. Not a very fun experience, but at least it's not a death sentence like IO can feel like. And these seems to be the 2 predominant theories, or the 2 leading opinions about anti-spell fragrance. It's either Imperial order in every sense that matters, or it's a balanced floodgate, one that actually promotes a bit of back and forth play. And whether or not you think that seems to really depend on how much you're invested into competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, I lean more toward the competitive side of things. That's just how I generally am in Yu-Gi-Oh! Especially since even when people play less high-tier decks, more rogue strategies, as every single strategy that isn't the tier 1 strategy is called by people these days. Even if you're only playing, say, my friend's Lightsworn Chaos, he's still going through with some of the best cards. It's just instead of playing the best engines to supplement them, he's playing his favorite engines. So, sure, he's not playing Tearlaments to get things into the graveyard, but once upon a time I was still dealing with Chaos Ruler and Hulk combos into Baron and, Artifact Dagdas to get out Scythes and tag out with the Wonder Magician and with Hulk on the field and all the crazy strong, sometimes degenerate things that can go on, just maybe with a little less consistency or with a little more of an open window to negate the Lightsworn Lumina's effect to bring something back to get link materials. Sure, you didn't play the best deck to get it, but you've built a strong enough board using these generic boss monsters and then negate sorts of things that the game has access to, and then you flipped up this bad boy on me well, I don't really care whether or not you used Light Sworns, or if you used Tearlaments, or if you used Sword Soul, or whatever you used to get to your big boss monsters and negates. At the end of the day, if you've got a strong-ass board and you flip over this card on me, I still can't Dark Ruler no more you, and you've got all these big, strong beaters that can just clear the field and OTK me. Now, that's not the end of the world. I do kind of love that aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm not complaining about the game at large. I'm simply saying that even bad decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Bad decks can be really good. And that can be a pain in the ass to face when you're also playing a bad deck that's just not quite as good, or, you know, you still need your spell card to do it. It doesn't matter if you're not playing the best deck of the format, because if you're still playing one of the best decks in your little collage of, you know, local scene, or your friends gathered at your buddy's place, or whatever it is, the anti-spill fragrance can still just be the nail in the coffin. So for me, I view it more akin to the higher tier play, I guess, where it's IO, you know, with a creepy smile instead of an old man. It does the same job in practice, and so I'm not all that fond of it. Now, don't get me wrong, I still play it at competitive levels because, well, if my buddy wants to flip Rivalry on me, it's only fair I flip Anti-Spell on him, you know? It's we all hate floodgates, but we all want to win, so that's another topic in general. But I don't know, I just want to kind of get some people's opinions, some thoughts on this card in general, because it's interesting, the difference of opinion in regards to where you stand as a player. And again, I don't think a casual player is better than a competitive and vice versa. It's interesting to see the difference of opinions at that level. Another card that's kind of similar is like Called by the Grave or Max C are two pretty big contentious ones as of late, wherein the difference of opinion at the top tables versus the casual rogue strategy players is sort of at the opposite ends for sometimes the same reason, even apparently, where it's like, we need Called By because it stops hand traps, and it's like, no, we need to get rid of Called By because it stops hand traps. And internet debates fascinate me. They annoy me a lot too, but they also fascinate me because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game, and I've spent a great amount of money and time playing it or trying to play it, and then getting smacked in the face by an anti-spell fragrance or something of the like. So if you want to add some conversation to it, feel free, let me know what you think. If you're, you know, a strong proponent that this card is something that is fair and is, you know, more enjoyable as a floodgate, as certainly compared to, say, there can be only one or one of the other atrocious ones. I'm curious to hear people's reasoning, because in my mind, this is pretty definitively a card I don't want in the game, but there are plenty of people who disagree with me, and I'd love to know some people's reasoning. So feel free, leave a comment, let me know if you want more casual discussions like this. This might have just been the weirdest ripoff of a Team APS video you've ever seen, in which case, whoops! But I'm curious. Leave a like, leave a comment, leave a subscription, leave a bad workplace. And remember, at the end of the day, the only thing keeping you at your job is you. I know there's obligations out there. You got bills to pay, you got cards you want to buy, you got whatever. But at the end of the day, when Dwight stays on your ass and keeps saying, hey, why were you 2 minutes late? You needed to be here right at 11. And you're like, dude, I was on the trim line. I can't leave the trim line until the next trim guy comes to replace me. So yes, it took me more than negative 18 seconds to get my toolkit and get to the line. I apologize for being 2 minutes late, but as you can see, it's still running, and yet you're still... I'm carrying the toolbox, but I didn't need it because you're being a tool, Dwight. And remember, when you're in those situations, you can just walk out. Yeah, you'll have to find a new job. Yeah, it'll be tough, but at the end of the day, if it means you don't have to deal with Dwight, you're in the winning books. That's all I have to say. Fuck you, Dwight, and have a great day, everyone else. I'm YGO Strats, and I can't think of a word that rhymes with Strats.